There's likely a moment somewhere in your life you haven't thought about in years. Not a painful one, a proud one, something you did that took real courage, and yet you've probably never told anyone the full story of how hard it actually was. Isn't that strange? We remember our regrets in vivid detail. We can replay them at 2 a.m. without even trying. But the moments we should be proudest of, those we let go quiet. What if the story you've been telling yourself about your own life has the emphasis in the wrong place entirely? Most of us, when we look back, do the same quiet math. We tally the choices that didn't work out, the path not taken, the words we wish we'd said or hadn't. And somewhere along the way, that math starts to feel like the truth of who we are. But here's something worth considering. That math was never accurate to begin with. Today we're going to talk about a different way to look back. One that doesn't erase the hard parts, but finally gives them their proper place in the story. Not the whole story, just one part of it. Let me tell you about a man we'll call Walter. For years, when people asked Walter about his life, he'd tell them about the business that failed in his 30s, the one he'd poured everything into. He told it almost like an apology, like it was the headline of who he was. But one afternoon, his granddaughter asked him a different question. Not, what went wrong? She asked, what did you do after it went wrong? Walter sat with that for a long moment, and then he told her about the 18 months after the failure, how he'd taken any work he could find, how he'd sat across from his wife at the kitchen table more nights than he could count, working out how to keep their family steady, how he never once let his children know how frightened he was. He'd told the story of the failure 100 times. He had never once told the story of what it took to survive it. His granddaughter looked at him and said, "Grandpa, that's not a sad story. That's the bravest thing I've ever heard." There's a reason Walter told the story that way for so long, and it isn't unique to him. Psychologist Barbara Fredrickson has spent years studying something called the negativity bias. Our mind's natural tendency to hold on to painful or difficult memories more tightly than positive ones. It's an old survival instinct. Long ago, remembering danger kept us alive. Remembering joy was, evolutionarily speaking, optional. But we are no longer running from danger. And that old instinct, left unchecked, quietly rewrites the story of an entire life, making the hard chapters louder than they deserve to be, and the chapters of quiet courage almost silent. This is not a flaw unique to Walter. It is close to universal, which means, very likely, it has shaped how you remember your own life too. Here is the important distinction, because this is not about pretending hard things didn't happen. Reframing isn't rewriting the past. Walter's business really did fail. That part of the story doesn't change, and it shouldn't. What changes is what you consider the point of the story. For years, Walter told the story with the failure as the ending. But the failure was never the ending. It was the middle. The real ending, the one that took 18 months of quiet, unglamorous courage, was that he held his family together when he had every reason not to. That is not a small correction. That is the difference between a story of defeat and a story of quiet endurance. Same facts. Different emphasis. An emphasis, it turns out, is something you are allowed to choose. So, here is something worth trying this week, and it takes no more than a few quiet minutes. Think of one regret you carry, one you've told yourself many times. And instead of asking, what went wrong, ask Walter's granddaughter's question instead. What did I do after? Who did you protect? What did you learn to carry? Who were you, in the months that followed, that you have perhaps never given yourself credit for? That answer is also true. It has simply been sitting quietly beneath the louder story, waiting for you to ask. A life well lived isn't one without hard chapters. Every life well lived has them. What makes it well lived is what you did in the space just after the hard part, quietly, without applause, often without even realizing you were being brave. That part of your story deserves to be told too. I'd love to hear, is there a Walter moment in your own life? A hard chapter where, looking back, you were braver than you ever gave yourself credit for? Share it in the comments. Someone reading may need to hear it today.